Hello, Bug2. This is Alan. I haven't made a video in a while. And one of the reasons is I've been kind of down, kind of depressed about comments might have made on previous videos. But of course, life goes on, and I really haven't been reading anything. And so, one of the ways to kind of snap out of a reading slump, so to speak, is to read a thriller or a detective novel. So I started on Joe Nesbo, The Devil's Star. This is Joe Nesbo has one of the best fictional characters that I always enjoy. Harry Ho, or as in Norwegian, it's Harry Hule. He is a person that is drunk. He has unauthorized absence and abuse of authorities, insubordination to superiors, and disloyal to the force. But of course, he gets the job done. And Joe Nesbo's books actually don't. It's like in this book, the main character, Harry Holy, doesn't appear until chapter 3 because there's a good introduction, incredible introduction to this. In fact, I'll read part of it. Part of it here. This couple's first child was unlucky enough to be born with dark curly hair and brown eyes, since the couple were blonde with blue eyes and the man was jealous by nature. Late one night, he tied his wife's hands behind her, took her down to the cellar, bricked her in. Her screams were effectively muffled by the thick walls where she stood bound and squeezed between two brick surfaces. The husband had perhaps thought she would suffocate from lack of oxygen, but bricklayers do allow for ventilation. In the end, the poor woman attacked the wall with her bare teeth, and that might have worked well because the Scottish bricklayer used pig blood and hair, thinking that he was saving on expensive lime and cement mix. However, her hunger for life sadly led her to taking excessively large mouthfuls of mortar and brick, and ultimately she was unable to choose. Swallowed her spit and sand, pebbles and chunks of clay blocked her windpipe. Face turned blue, her heart beat slow, and then stopped breathing. And then, this is a part where you gotta laugh, she was what most people would call dead. And then Joe Nesbo adds a little bit into his stories, in which you go, oh, that's interesting, because the Harry Holy appears drunk to this crime scene in which a woman's finger had been cut off. She had been shot through the head, and also there was a diamond on her eyelid when she closed her eye. And the couple of this apartment lived downstairs. The woman knew what was going on. She was making mashed potatoes, and there was a drip coming from the ceiling. And so here's a part where Harry Holy comes in and says, "Oh, this woman's finger that was cut off was in the water." And Joe Nesbo makes a point in saying that this water does not can clot the blood; it continues to bleed, and also the blood dripping from the ceiling landed into the woman's mashed potatoes. And when her partner tasted it, she said it tasted like eggs. And the woman used to be a cook, worked with a chef, and that's what happens when you mix blood into potatoes. It turns into eggs. So it's very interesting how Joe Nesbo uses research into doing that. This is I have a list here. This is the 5th book in the Harry Hooley series. There's 12 books in the series, and I have not read them in order. The first one was the book, then the Red Breast. The Red Breast was the first one I read. Then you have Cockroaches, Nemesis, which I have, and Nemesis is pretty big. And then the Devil Star, Redeemer, Snowman, Leopard, Phantom, Police, Thirst, and the Knife. I've read 5 of them. I read the Bat, the Red Breast, Cockroaches, which takes place in Bangkok, Thailand. The Bat takes place in Australia. And then I read Redeemer and Snowman. Snowman is very, very good. So that's the way to keep, if you're having a reading slump or trying to get out, just read a mystery or just read detective novels because you want to know how it ends. And I've only been reading this book for 2 days and more. I'm page 140. And the book's 522 pages. Joe Nesbo is an incredible writer. For those who haven't read his books yet. Next, I received, I bought several books here. The first one is called The Train to Pakistan. This is a book by Kushwat Singh. I believe that's how you pronounce the author's name. It's a contemporary fiction novel. It was originally published in 1956. Introduction and copyright 1981. I think this was translated. Author Lal is a former ambassador and permanent representative from India to the United Nations. And The Train to Pakistan, I actually got this book because I saw it on a Bookstagram channel on Instagram page, and someone had showed this book, and it looked very interesting because it takes place in 1947. 1947 was the year that India became kind of dispersed, and you had the largest migration of people in the world, 22 million, who left India and went and created the country of Pakistan. And back here it says, in the summer of 1947, when the creation of the new state of Pakistan was formally announced, 10 million people, Muslims, Hindus, and Sikhs, were in flight. By the time the monsoon broke, almost 1 million of them were dead, and all of northern India was in arms, in terror, or in hiding. The only remaining oasis of peace was a scattered little villages lost in remote reaches of the frontier. One of those villages was Mano Mara. And its place, Kuswan Singh goes on to tell at the beginning of this classic novel where Sikhs and Muslims lived together in peace for hundreds of years. Then one day at the end of summer, the ghost train arrives. A silent, incredible funeral train loaded with bodies of thousands of refugees, bringing the village its first taste of the horrors of civil war. Train to Pakistan is the story of this isolated village that has plunged to the abyss of religious hate. It is also the story of a Sikh boy and a Muslim girl whose love endures and transcends the ravages of war. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. It's very short. It's less than only 181 pages. This I got this magazine in the mail, Russian Life. I'm really enjoying this. It has different articles in here about travel, food, cooking, and different book reviews in here, and incredible pictures. Here's one about In search of Terra Incognita, which is above the 200 years ago in 1820, Russian Admiral Fabian Gottlieb von Bellenhausen became the first explorer to set upon Antarctica. This came nearly 50 years after Captain Cook in 1773 made maritime history but first to cross the Arctic Circle aboard the HMS Resolution. And so this is a monument to the Admiral right here. And this is the map of the expedition right here. And this is just the story of the expedition. And there's a picture of all these penguins. There's another picture of penguins on an iceberg. Oh, there's thousands of penguins. And it just shows the different pictures, and the one on the cover with this gentleman here, he's actually what they call a Maori. And it's a tribe in Russia. It's called God in Nature, worshiping with the Maori. And I haven't read this one yet. It sounds very interesting. And it talks about the Maori life. And talks about how they worship outside, a ritual. And different cleansing. But also, this book is, this magazine is little ads for books. And this one's called Moscow and the Muscovites by Vladimir Glavarsky. Classic portrait of Russian capital, first published in 1926. It has never been translated into English, despite the fact it's one of Russia's most beloved books, and I had this one on order. And it also shows, has other books here, fine fiction for Rush supplies, and it showed different articles. It's very, very good book. Very, very good magazine, Very good magazine. I'm enjoying that one. One of the books that it had was this one that it shows, called House of the Dead, the Siberian Exile under the Tsars. Now, excuse me. Ugh, sorry about that. A lot of people think when you hear about exiles, when you hear about the gulags, that you hear about Stalin. Well, that's not the case. The Tsars did a lot of sending people to the gulags. And the House of the Dead tells an incredible 100-year-long story of the vast prison without a roof that was Russian Siberian penal colony. From the beginning of the 19th century until the Russian Revolution, the Tsars exiled more than 1 million prisoners and their families to the east. Here, Daniel Baer illuminates both the brutal realities of this inhumane system and tragic inspiration fates of those who endured it. So it peopled Siberia, the army of destitute desert vagabonds who visit the player crime on the indigenous population. This book is copyrighted in 2016. Unfinished paperback. But I've also read about the Russian Siberian exiles under the Tsars from this book, The Lost Pietos of Siberia, which I read earlier this year by Sophie Roberts. This is an incredible book. It came out this year. And it also tells about the exiles, especially the ones to the what they call these Sakhalin Islands. And one of the ways that was unusual, one of the ways that ended the exiles, this one right here, it's called the Sakhalin Islands. I don't know if you can see that. One of the ways that ended, and this was visited, this islands were visited by Anton Chekhov, and also Dostoevsky was imprisoned in there. But I was going to say, one of the ways that you had a an ending towards the exiles in Russia, especially the Sakhalin Islands, was the fact that war ended. Ended those islands, because the Sakhalin Islands, were actually close to Japan and Hokkaido, and so the Japanese wanted to wrest one of these islands, so they attacked it, and so that sort of ended the czar, the gulags, the prisons at that time. That's the way it ended, because of war. And if you saw the Ghost Readers channel, he was talking about history, which was a history tag 2 weeks ago. He mentioned the fact that there was a guy who was Korean and he's captured by the Japanese, and Japanese fought the Russians, and the Russians captured him and put him in the gulag. But then World War II started, and they were fighting the Germans. The Russians were, Soviet Union, and they needed men, so they went to the gulags and got. So war actually helps get rid of the gulags. Imagine that. So there's House of the Dead, Siberian Exiles Under the Czars by Daniel Beard. Next two books I got, I bought one at a thrift store. This is by Andrew Graham-Dixon, and this is The Life of Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio. And this is by Andrew Graham-Dixon. This is Caravaggio. This is only like under $2. And this came out in 2010. And it shows you it has a list of illustrations. I'll show you some of them in here. Different paintings. In Caravaggio, there's a self-portrait of Michelangelo. Caravaggio, and here's a couple of his paintings. He would go out and use the poor and use the prostitutes for some of his paintings. And this one right here, it's called Boy Peeling a Fruit. And it tells you in the front here where each of the paintings is located. And the boy peeling the fruit is actually, see if I can find it here real quick. The boy peeling the fruit, circa 1592 to 93, is in the Royal Collection of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, oil and canvas, 24 by 19 inches. And as always, it reminds me, and it reminds me of that Wes Anderson film about the Grand Budapest Hotel, when this old woman dies, and they're reading the will, and the secretary of the will says that this person who's over in charge of the Grand Budapest Hotel, gets the painting, excuse me, Boy with Apple. And some guy comes up to him, says, "You're not getting Boy with Apple, you fruit." I thought that was hilarious. That's the card shot, which is in Fort Worth, which is about an hour and a half away. There's Medusa. And he was had a dark past. But his paintings are incredible. The dark and summer. And he painted one. This is St. Jerome writing. This one right here. St. Francis in meditation. And St. John the Baptist. So this is going to be a fascinating biography of Caravaggio. See if I can find one. Oh, this is David with the head of Goliath. This one right here. So a lot of his paintings are well known and in several places around the world. Probably more famous now. There was one that I want to show you that painting. Don't see it at the moment. And it had to do, it was called the Virgin. And it was rejected because Caravaggio used as a model a prostitute. And it was rejected by a cardinal and then Caravaggio went out and killed a pimp. And so this is what this book is about. Life, Sacred and Profound by Caravaggio. And this one is produced by Alan Lane, which is a imprint of Penguin Books. The next one I got is it's by one of those when you go to Amazon Prime, and you want to purchase a book, they say, they recommend you some other books to read or might be interested in purchasing. And so I looked at the one of them and I go, oh, that's very interesting. Never heard of that one. And I got it because back in March, I read this thing, James Clavell's Gaijin, epic novel of the birth of modern Japan. And it was kind of anticlimactic. It's over 1,090 pages. I read it from March Mammoth. And then I saw this book, Takio. And this is by Eiji Yoshikawa. It's a Japanese historical fiction writer. And this was printed by the Japanese. This is printed in Japan in 1966. It wasn't printed in the United States in English until 1992, and it was translated by William Scott Wilson, who is a translator of a lot of Japanese novels. William Scott Wilson was the translator down at the bottom right there. And he has translated a lot of samurai novels from the Japanese. But let me read you a little bit in the flyleaf here. In the tempestuous closing decades of the 16th century, the Empire of Japan writhers in chaos as the shogunate crumbles and rival warlords battle for supremacy. Warrior monks and their armed citadels block the road to the capital castles of the destroyed villages, plundered fields put to the torch. Amid this devastation, three men dream of uniting the nation. One extreme is the charismatic but brutal Nob Unaga, whose ruthless ambition crushes all before him. On the opposite pole is the cold, deliberate Aishu, wise in counsel, brave in battle, mature beyond his years. But the keystone of this triumvirate is the most memorable of all, Hideyoshi, who rises from the mental post of the Sano barrier to become Takio, absolute ruler of Japan in the emperor's name. And this one is here you have the family crest of the samurai in Japan. There's 10 of them, and both of them try to take the name Takio. And then you have the central Japan, and you have each crest that was on that other page. That's what the lands that they own, that they conquered. And then you have it starts off with measurement of time in medieval Japan. So getting this book as from a Japanese perspective, rather than this book from an American perspective, is it's going to be very interesting to read. This is over 900 pages, and it's in 10 books. And so he has like book 1, book 2, book 10. The author was born in 1892 near Tokyo, began his literary career at age 22. He continued to work as a journalist while writing novels that reached a large and appreciated readership. At the time of his death in 1962, he was one of Japan's most popular novelists. So this is Takio, and it was published by it's kind of hard to read, excuse me, small print. Kodansha, USA. That's Kodansha, USA. So this is a very good read. It's going to be a very good read. Well, thank you very much for watching. Comment if you wish. Subscribe if you want. And thank you very much.